Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we're looking at something pretty significant. It's an inaugural call, a founding document, really, from the South Sudanese Diaspora Advocacy Alliance, the SSDAA. And right off the bat, you can feel this weight, this sense of urgency they talk about. Urgent and historic, I think is the phrase they use. It's like, here's this community living outside South Sudan, and they're basically being asked to step up and, well, shape the country's future.
Yeah, and their core mission, I mean, on the surface, it sounds straightforward, right? Unite the diaspora, become this force for peace, unity, good governance, and development. Simple enough on paper.
Right, a powerful statement.
But where it gets really interesting, I think, isn't just with the big goals, it's the how. It's how they're realizing they need to structure themselves, organize themselves to even have a shot at those goals.
Right. That's really the crux of this deep dive, isn't it? Because the SSDAA isn't just focusing on, say, political lobbying back home. This source material, it shows a fundamentally dual mission. And that's where the strategy gets quite clever. They're committed to peace advocacy for South Sudan, absolutely. But they're equally focused on tackling these deep social problems within the diaspora community itself, where they live now.
Exactly. And that dual focus, you really have to grasp that to understand what they're trying to do. They seem to be working from this idea that, well, they can't effectively push for change back home if their own communities abroad are, struggling or falling apart.
Fractured, yeah.
It's like they're saying internal health is sort of a prerequisite for having any real external influence.
Okay, so let's start there then, the internal health piece. Because reading through this SSDAA call, the list of challenges they mention, it's not trivial stuff. It really cuts deep into social stability. These sound like serious symptoms, maybe from years of displacement, uncertainty.
Well, yeah. We have to remember, these communities, scattered globally, they're dealing with what the call actually names social disintegration. That's a strong term.
It is.
And that big problem seems to break down into specific, quite painful issues, especially generationally. We're talking, according to them, worrying levels of youth delinquency, kids dropping out of school, widespread drug and substance abuse, and, this is critical, I think, major, often unaddressed mental health crises running through the community.
Wow. And it doesn't stop there either. They mention economic inequality within the diaspora, too, and this phrase, erosion of cultural and moral values. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Here's a group aiming to influence a national crisis, maybe thousands of miles away, but they're prioritizing things like youth drug problems in, I don't know, Minneapolis or Melbourne. Why start there?
I think they see it as a strategic necessity, really. It's pragmatic. I mean, if your young generation is dropping out or dealing with serious mental health issues, you're basically losing your future leaders, right? Your potential professionals, your unified voice.
Your capacity is diminished.
Exactly. If the diaspora itself is constantly putting out internal fires, dealing with its own social crises, well, how can they possibly channel sustained, coherent energy into the massive task of political advocacy concerning South Sudan? It becomes almost impossible.
And that internal weakness, so the focus on it, it contrasts sharply with the frustration they express about the situation in South Sudan.
Oh, absolutely. The document is blunt about that. It says something like, for too long, they've relied on leaders who have repeatedly failed us.
Yeah.
Failed them and denied their rights to peace, unity, prosperity. That feeling of persistent failure, it seems to create this moral drive for the diaspora to say, okay, maybe we need to lead now.
And that drive, that imperative, it seems directly linked to the advantages they have living abroad. The SSDAA call is quite explicit about these privileges, things people back home often lack, and how they create a kind of responsibility, an obligation almost.
They list them out very clearly. They say they're blessed with freedom, education, networks, and opportunities. It's a direct challenge, isn't it, to their own community? Like, if you have these resources and the people who desperately need change don't, what's your obligation?
Yeah.
And the conclusion they draw is quite stark. Quote, cannot remain silent while our communities here in the diaspora and our motherland suffer. Silence for them just isn't an option anymore, morally or practically.
So the source really reframes the diaspora's role, not just observers watching from afar, but potentially a crucial resource that needs to be activated. But tackling these huge, complex problems, both internal diaspora issues and the crisis back home that needs more than just willpower. It needs a structure, right?
Yeah.
So how exactly is this SSDAA platform designed to actually meet that challenge?
Well, what's interesting is how carefully they seem to be defining themselves. This isn't pitched as, a short-term protest group or some kind of rapid response thing. It's meant to be a structured, peaceful, and strategic platform for the long haul, it sounds like.
Sustained advocacy.
Exactly. And critically, they emphasize inclusivity. They're calling out specifically to youth, women, elders, professionals, students, trying to build a really broad base, multi-generational.
Okay, let's dig into that strategic roadmap then, because they're very disciplined, laying out 5 clear objectives. But let's maybe think about the inherent difficulty here, doing this from abroad. Like, the first 2 goals alone are enormous. Mobilizing the entire diaspora around unity, peace-building, development, that's 1. And 2, advocating for responsible dialogue, transparency, accountability, good governance in South Sudan.
That second one, wow, that's a huge lift. Trying to demand transparency and accountability from overseas, that's notoriously hard, especially with entrenched political systems.
Yeah.
They're essentially asking for systemic change, aren't they? A move away from tribal focus towards good policies, ethical leaders who serve everyone. The real challenge is how you translate a unified diaspora voice into actual leverage that influences decisions being made thousands of miles away in Juba.
Which raises the question, doesn't it? How realistic is it for an advocacy group, even a united global one, to fundamentally shift a nation's political dynamics? They must realize this isn't going to be a quick fix.
Oh, absolutely. This has to be a long game perspective. And I think its feasibility, its chance of success, might hinge almost entirely on their 5th objective, the one that brings us back to that internal foundation. It feels like the organization understands that if they can't sort out their internal diaspora issues, their external advocacy will just lack the necessary punch, the credibility, the staying power.
Right. Let's look at that key final objective then, the one circling back. To address social challenges in the diaspora. That means tackling the youth delinquency, the substance abuse, mental health, economic inequality they listed earlier. And then consider the other 2 practical goals, supporting development projects, both in the diaspora and back home, and empowering women and youth specifically as leaders and agents of change.
See, that's where the integrated approach really comes through. It's quite sophisticated, actually. They're not just waiting for politics in Juba to magically solve the social problems cropping up in diaspora communities worldwide.
No, they're acting now.
They're saying, we need to stabilize our families now, mentor our youth now, address these mental health crises now. The logic seems to be, if we can build functional, skilled, resilient, unified communities abroad, well, those communities become the engine, the resource pool, for driving the bigger changes needed back home.
So tackling, say, youth issues in North America isn't just about those kids' immediate welfare. It's actually about preserving the human capital, the future potential needed for the nation building they talk about in their development goals. It's really pragmatic capacity building.
Precisely. And by that, focusing on empowering women and youth within the diaspora, that's objective 4, they are quite literally cultivating the next wave, the next generation of potentially informed, skilled, and hopefully healthier leaders who could either return someday or contribute effectively from wherever they are. Dysfunction abroad just means less capacity for transformation at home. It's a direct link.
And the scale of this, it suggests they're thinking way beyond any single city or country. It's not just a local chapter effort. The call explicitly invites South Sudanese worldwide, North America, Europe, Australia, Africa are mentioned.
The scope is huge, and that global reach is both a massive opportunity and, let's be honest, a huge organizational headache.
Sure.
The opportunity is obvious. The potential power of a unified global voice, that could be immense. But the challenge, how do you keep that unity? How do you coordinate efforts, manage funds, maintain momentum across all these different time zones, political contexts, different migration experiences? It's complex.
The document is pretty clear, though, about what they hope that collective impact will achieve once they are unified. It starts with that foundational principle. Promote unity among all South Sudanese, explicitly, regardless of tribe or political affiliation.
That's a direct confrontation, isn't it? With the very divisions that have caused so much strife in South Sudan itself. And they want concrete advocacy, pushing for clear policies, good leaders who serve everyone, irrespective of tribe or politics. This isn't just a vague wish for peace. It's a specific demand for a fundamental shift away from tribal politics. It's structural reform thereafter.
And crucially, they want to move beyond just making demands. They talk about actively building programs. The goal is to build programs that empower our communities, create opportunities for all, and bring hope to those left behind. That feels like a significant shift from critique to construction, from being observers to trying to be architects.
That phrase really does capture the whole vision, I think. The fundamental aim here seems to be ensuring that South Sudanese abroad stop being just spectators. that they become active contributors to nation building. They're betting that their collective education, their freedoms, their professional networks, that these can be harnessed as maybe the most critical resource for change right now.
That strong commitment to collective action really sums up the urgency in this founding call. It's an incredibly ambitious plan, but one that seems to really understand the deep, interconnected problems facing South Sudanese people, both at home and globally.
It does. The core message comes through very clearly. This task is huge, it's urgent, but the mission is noble. And they're very clear that peace, unity, prosperity, these things won't just happen. They won't be handed down. They require effort, commitment, and our collective voice. It really is an organized, quite pragmatic call for mobilization.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, maybe as a final thought, especially when you think about what this model could mean for other diaspora groups facing crises back home. The SSDAA call ends with this powerful line: "Let us be the generation that stands up, speaks out, and acts for the future of our people." Ooh. Now, if their strategy is right, if the key to nation building really involved leveraging diaspora skills, but only after tackling severe internal social issues like disintegration and trauma abroad, well, that kind of shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from purely political skills. If the diaspora has lawyers and engineers, fine. But if the most immediate foundational problems are things like youth delinquency, trauma, community breakdown, then what non-political skills, things like, say, community psychology, specialized trauma therapy, maybe even organizational development expertise to build strong community structures, do those become the truly essential resources for national transformation, at least right now? Something to definitely mull over as we watch how this ambitious dual-track strategy unfolds.